Okay, today is the first day of actual editing in our Premiere class. Weber State University, go Wildcats. This is the video editing class. I'm Scott. If you happen across this tutorial, you should probably go find other tutorials because I make a fool of myself all the time on these. But if you want to learn some Premiere, you're welcome to. From me. All right. So today we are going to begin our hallway project that we shot last time in class. Before I do this, let me ask everybody a couple of questions off screen. Okay, first things first. If you go into Canvas, into our calendar, and click on this hallway project setup, you will find a link to the Dropbox downloadable zip. Also, if you go to Project 1 Assignment Hallway Setup, in that description, there's also a link to that zip file. It's about 4.5 gigabytes. You'll download that, and when that's done downloading, you'll unpack that zip file, and then inside this hallway clips folder, you'll see some clips that you can take a look at. All right. Now, if you are going to be taking these from a Mac and using them on a PC, I think we're going to have to probably have to convert them for you to a different format. There's only one person doing that in here today, so we can do that later as well. It'll take about 5 minutes. All right, so these are our clips. They have some technical issues, and they have some not technical issues. But we'll work through all of those things several different ways. Now, from a project management standpoint, right now this is on this computer's operating system hard drive because it got downloaded to the downloads folder. We want to now move those onto your external hard drives into a project folder that we set up on your external hard drive. Now, because I'm the instructor, we're going to pretend that my desktop is my external hard drive. Okay, so for instruction purposes, if I ever click on my desktop, it's don't click on your desktop. That's your external hard drive. Okay. So there's a key command for creating a new folder in Finder. I personally like to use this column view when I'm doing my drags and drops and copies and stuff. The key command is Command-Shift-N for new. Okay, and I'm getting this started right now using key commands as often as you can, because if you're using key commands and keyboard shortcuts, you're going to be much faster as an editor. And if you're fast as an editor, then you can charge more money per hour because you get more work done in an hour than the average person, okay? So if I see you going up to your file menus and stuff after you should know a keyboard shortcut, I'll smack your hands. Like, get your hand off that. Just kidding. I won't really. It's 2018. We don't smack our students anymore. Okay, so I'm going to call this one Hallway Project. Actually, what you should do is create a Web 2300 folder. That way you know all this stuff for this class is going to go inside that folder. Okay, and because your hard drive's probably big enough for lots and lots of data, you can use this for anything. So I usually, in the root of my workspace, I organize it by year and then by client. So think of Web 2300 as your client. And then inside here, we'll create another new folder and call this one Hallway Project. Okay, so now what we'll do is everything that's associated with this project, we will move into this Hallway Project folder. But if we just start chucking images and audio files and video files and project files and exports and drafts and all that stuff right here, this is going to turn into a big cluttered mess. So let's do some further organization. We'll make a new folder and call this Assets. And then I'll click here and create another new folder, Command-Shift-N, and call this Project Files. And then I'll make another new folder and call this one Drafts. And you can make another new folder and call this one Final. Okay. So what I usually do for my projects, because I'm working with a lot of different programs, is I have a working folder that I put a separate directory for Premiere projects, a separate one for Audition projects, After Effects projects, and that's where I keep those. And then instead of having a drafts and a final, I have an output folder for previous drafts, current drafts, and masters, which are the uncompressed videos, and then delivery files, which might be web and email size and different things. And then under assets, we could get as extreme as going audio, video, graphics, logos, as granular as you want to get for organizing your own projects. Okay. So what I usually do is I try to think of all the things that I'm going to want for a project, and I create all the folders that I need in here, however you would want to organize it, and then I would just call this underscore project template. Then anytime you're starting a new project, you just click on that project template, hold down Option, release it, and it'll create a duplicate of that folder structure so that you don't have to create all these folders every time you create a new project. Okay, so there's another little shortcut for you.
What was the key command for that?
You just hold down Alt or Option as you're dragging that folder down, and it'll create a duplicate.
And then you'll rename it after you recreate it?
Yep. So then I renamed the duplicate. But like I said, I have a project template folder that has way more folders than this. So as you're working and you're like, oh man, I need to have an audio folder now, and then you can go back to your project template, go back and reorganize your project template so that next time you create a new project, it'll be even more prepared for you. Okay, for this project, we might have some we're going to have some graphics that we might bring into this, but for now, all we have are these video clips from this to this. So I am going to Shift-click on that entire list to select that list of video clips and move them to my Assets folder. Now, because I'm on my operating hard drive, moving those from one place to another, it was instantaneous. It's probably going to take you guys about 4 minutes to copy those over.
Am I okay to copy them over?
Yep.
Even though they're going to Windows?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll convert yours over to a Windows-friendly format because these are all ProRes files right now. Okay. So we have that done, right? Is everybody with me?
Yes.
And we put under which tab? Assets?
Yeah, in the Assets folder. Okay. This is data management. Okay. So now as long as I always keep anything that's associated with this project in the folders inside that project folder, if I need to move that hard drive to another computer, all those assets are going to move along with it. So if you open it up on a different computer and it says, I don't know where this asset is, you either didn't move that asset here first, or the computer just doesn't recognize the file path, and you can tell Premiere where your assets are, and then it'll relink them, okay? Because nothing's more aggravating than like working in the lab till 10 o'clock thinking, oh, I'm just going to go home, grab a bite to eat, and then finish this. And then you get home 30 minutes later, you have your food, you try to open up your project, and you realize all your assets are sitting on the computer at school. That's probably resetting every time you restart it. And you're got to re-download the footage and reacquire all your assets again. So it's a big pain unless you practice maintaining control over the location of your assets. And you always want to keep them together. Project files and assets live in the same place. Okay? All right. So with that being said, let's Command Tab over to Premiere. If you have this open, you might be playing like a little video intro. Just skip that. This is the getting started where you set up your project. This is going to come up every time because in order for you to work in Premiere, you have to have a project open. Premiere won't open up unless you give it a project to open, whether it be a new project you create or a project you're already working on. So because this is our first project, we don't have any recent projects, otherwise they would show up in a list over here. We're going to click New Project. This is where we name our project. So I'm going to name this one Scott Halford Hallway. Okay. And I would suggest doing your first and last name hyphen hallway as well. That way I know whose it is when I open it up to grade it. All right, so click Browse. Next row down, click Browse. This is your Save As. So we're going to go to our external hard drive, click on Web 2300, click on Hallway Project, and then save this in the project files. Okay? Because Premiere is a non-destructive editor. It has this little project file that says, I want to see this part of this video and then this part of this video, but it doesn't actually change the video files on your computer. Okay?
So all your raw footage.
So all the raw footage stays exactly the way it is on the computer. It won't change.
Okay.
Okay. This stuff is fine being all the default settings, scratch disk, ingest settings, all that stuff can just be as it is because that doesn't matter for us today. So I'll click OK. And now Premiere opens up with nothing. So this is if your workspace doesn't look like this, you might need to go to this window, workspaces, and go to editing, because mine's the editing tab right now, the workspace. But this is the project panel. It lives kind of in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. In older versions of Premiere, that used to live up here, but they moved it down here. So, question?
I got kind of left behind.
Okay, let me help you get caught up.
What?
Let me help you get caught up. Okay, so as I said in class last time, your assets come in here. We preview them up here. We edit them together down here. And then we see the final output up here. Okay, so let's do some project organization. Project organization will mostly follow the same structure as your folder organization. For example, you'll create a little bin that you'll put all your video files in. Then you'll create another bin that you can get all your audio assets from, and then graphics and all that stuff. So the new bin is the new folder icon down here in the bottom right corner of your project panel. That's your new bin. So click on that, and I will call this video. Now I'm going to select that video, the icon of that video bin that I just created. And there are a few different ways that you can import assets. You can Command Tab over to Finder and see them in the list in Finder, and then drag them down into that bin, and they import into that bin. Okay. You can, I'm going to double click on that bin just to bring it open. You can double click in the negative space somewhere in your project panel, and that'll bring up an import dialog box. And then you can navigate to your hallway project folder, assets, and then select all of these. Okay. You can select them all individually, collectively, or you can import the entire folder and it'll import as a bin. Okay, but I already created a bin, so I just need the assets to go in there.
Then we just click and drag.
Well, this is an open dialog box, so I'm going to need to click import.
It says import on it.
Yeah, so click import. And there they all are. Now there are two different views in your project panel. This is the thumbnail view where I can move my mouse over, and it's called scrubbing. As I move my mouse over it like this, it's showing me the frames as they would play from beginning to end. Left is the beginning, right is the end. So that I can preview it in thumbnail view. I can also bring up list view, which is these two icons down here, switch between list view and icon view. This is list view. This little icon right here tells me that there's video and audio in this clip. If it only had a film strip, that would be video with no audio, and if it only had this green little waveform, then that would be audio. There's another symbol for sequence, graphics, and then bins or folders, obviously. And then there's statistics about each of these clips off to the side. Okay, we can get more into that later. So we have some assets imported. Let's preview some of these. So in order to preview them, you would need to double click on them. Now here's a little quirky thing about Premiere. If you click on the name once, oh, they changed it. I guess enough people complained. It used to be if you clicked on the name once, it would highlight the name and you could rename it. This highlighting the name in Premiere and renaming it is only for organizing it in Premiere. It doesn't change the name of the clip on your hard drive. It's just so you can give it a name that makes more sense to you than clip 0013, okay? So let's double click on clip 0013. That brings it up in your source panel. So your source panel is the original footage as it was shot, or how we're telling Premiere to interpret it. This little downward facing little tab thing is your playhead, and this is going to play from left to right. The very left of this is the very beginning of the clip. The very right of this is the very end of the clip. So whether it's a 10-second clip or a 10-minute clip, that rule applies. Okay. So here's your first keyboard shortcut for Premiere. Spacebar. Spacebar is play and stop. Okay, that's universal throughout Premiere. You want to play something and stop it, you hit spacebar. Okay, so let's just watch this. Now, if you'll notice, because I've been clicking up in here, I have this blue bar going around this panel. That means that's the active panel right now. So if I hit spacebar, it's going to play the stuff in here. If this is active, then it'll play the stuff in here. If this is active, then it'll play the stuff in here, which shows up here also. Okay. All right, so any of these we double click on, it'll come up here and we can preview it and watch it. All right.
Oh, what is that?
Okay. And then again, we can double click on any of these. So it's like, oh, I think I'm interested in this, but this little thumbnail is too small. So you can double click on it up here, down here, bring it up here. And you can either scrub across for the part you're interested in, or you can hit spacebar. Okay, or stop, hit spacebar again. Okay, so this little play arrow is way too small to be trying to click every time you want to play and stop. Spacebar is a much bigger target. You can just leave your thumb there and you're always ready to play and stop stuff. Okay, so there's no need to ever click on that little play toggle.
We do that, we can get slapped too.
You'll get slapped for doing that. Not really. My mind will slap you. I'll force slap you with my mind. Here's a little tip for learning keyboard shortcuts. See how my mouse is hovered over this right now? A little tab comes up next to it. Play, stop, toggle, parentheses, space. Okay. So if you're wanting to teach yourself keyboard shortcuts, that's how. You just hover your mouse over, like, so here's our toolbox right here. You just hover your mouse over, pen tool, parentheses, P. Okay. Track select tool, A. The way I remember A is for all. So it'll select all the things. Ripple edit, B. Razor tool, C for cut. Slip tool, Y. I don't know why. Slips, slippery. I don't know. Type tool, T. So yeah, I think you get the drift. Also with your menus, if I go up to my file menu, it'll get you a beach ball. Wait for it. Wait for it.
No.
Okay, so I just had a beach ball, which always freaks me out. So I'm going to hit Command S. Can anybody guess what Command S does? Save. Saves it. Okay. All right, I didn't lose any work. Lucky me. All right, so I'm going to go back up to this menu, File. For import, you can import assets by clicking File, hovering down, Import, and clicking. But off to the side of that, what is that telling me? That's Command I. That's the keyboard shortcut for import. Okay, so you can either so that's another way you can import assets. Because I don't have negative space over here. Actually, I could click right there. That's the import dialog box. I can right click, import. I can Command I. I can drag and drop. All of those things are faster than finding this word, scrolling down here, and clicking on that. Okay. All right. So that's how you teach yourself to become faster and faster, more valuable as a utility to a company. Because like if you can churn out work faster, even if it's maybe doesn't, as an assistant editor especially, like let's say you don't have enough experience from like an aesthetic standpoint to be an editor, but you are really fast at importing footage and organizing it and laying it out on a timeline because you know all the keyboard shortcuts. You can make a very valuable assistant editor while you're learning some of the more aesthetics of maybe the studio you're working at or something, or production company. Okay. All right. Any questions thus far? Is everybody with me? All right. Your brains are probably going to start turning into mush here soon because we just hit 25 minutes.
How did you get it in this view like that real quick?
It's these two little icons down here.
Yeah.
The bottom left changes it. All right. Now, let's start editing. We need to create a sequence. Now, the rule with sequences in your editing is you need to make sure that your sequence is the same settings as the footage that you're editing. The most important setting to have is your frame rate. All right, so if I hover over, it's not coming up. If I go to my list view, see this frame rate? See how it's the first thing after the name? 23.976. What does that mean? Oh, what's 2997? What's 5976?
It's just how fast the screen is, or the pixels and stuff are refreshing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like the refresh rate on your video game. It's like how quickly the images are flashing in front of your eyes to create the motion picture.
How fluid it all
Yeah.
is.
The higher the frame rate, the more fluid. 2398 or 23976 is essentially 24 frames, which is the speed at which film goes. Okay, so because I always wished I could have been a filmmaker, like to shoot in 24 because that looks more cinematic to me. Okay. So here's the easy way to make sure you create a sequence that's identical. We can either right click in here, click new item, sequence, or I can introduce you to the new item button in the bottom right hand corner of your project panel, sequence, or let me just show you here. See all this? This is like, oh, this is a good sequence if you shoot on an ARRI. This is a good sequence if you're shooting these codecs. This is a good sequence if you're editing Avid footage. Here's a good sequence if you're doing digital video versus HD, HDV. These all have slight variations on the same settings. Okay? But how do we know, like if someone just tosses us some footage, how do we know which one of these is going to match this? It's kind of hard, right?
Yeah, you don't know.
So Adobe folks did us a favor a few versions ago, and they made it possible for us to right click on any clip. These are all shot the same, so if I right click on this one, I get a beach ball again. If that's going to take 30 seconds, I'm going to pause this again. Okay, so if I right click on this first clip, and select new sequence from clip, it will create a sequence, load it into the timeline, show it to me in my program monitor, and this sequence has all these identical settings to the clip that I just created from, okay? So any of these clips, they're all the same, they all have the same statistics, so right click on any of them and then select new sequence from clip.
Oh, there.
Okay.
Oh, we're in the right spot.
So let's call this one, let's rename this one hallway scene, because this is what we're going to cut together. Now from a project organization standpoint, I would like to get that out of my bin and into maybe the root of my project panel. And let's see if I can get my project panel up. If I look at this in list view, I can see my project, and then if I twirl down that bin, there's my hallway scene sequence. If I just grab that, drag it to the left, and drop it, that drops it outside that bin so that I can twirl it down and just have it there to find at any time. Now if you can make multiple films in one project file. This sequence is only one, this could be one scene of like a multiple scene video. Or you could cut the whole thing together on one timeline. Just depends on how you end up wanting to work as an editor. If you get a project that's like 30 minutes long with multiple scenes, that one timeline can get rather hard to work with. So then you want to like make little sequences, and then you put them all together on one big timeline so that it becomes more manageable. Okay, that's called nesting, and we'll do that in the commercial project, I think. All right, so we've got clip 13. I actually know I was watching this footage earlier, so I have the benefit of being a little bit familiar with it. There's only one part of this clip that I would use, maybe, but I don't know yet because I haven't looked at all the other options yet. So first of all, I'm just going to click on this clip in the timeline and hit delete, because the whole point of using that clip to create the timeline was just so I could make the timeline have the right settings. Okay? All right. So now, in my project panel, I'm going to twirl down my video bin, and I'm going to go to clip 18. Double click on clip 18. That'll come up in the source panel. Question?
Yeah, sorry, I looked away for like a minute.
Okay. Okay, next what we need to do is we need to pick the portion of this shot that we want to have in our video. Okay, so if I hit spacebar, I'll play it. Okay. I'm just going to watch this right now so we can see the whole thing. All right. Do we want this last little bit right here?
No.
No, that's nasty, right? What I'm doing here is I'm using my right and left arrows to go one frame at a time, to look at this one frame at a time. So let me just click somewhere over here and drag it this way. Are we interested in just stairs once he's left? Okay, that's not really what we care about. So what we're interested in is maybe this clip ending about right here, right? And then let's look at the beginning. Are we interested in this clip from the very beginning? Are we interested in it about right here? Okay, so what we're interested in is from about right here to right here, right? If we just click on this, drag this down into the timeline, we've got the entire clip on our timeline. But that's more than we need. So here's how we select what we're interested in. With our playhead, where we want it to start, we tap the letter I. That means in. That's where we want it to start. Okay. Now we can either hit space bar and watch this till we're done being interested in it. Hit space bar again to stop. Then it's O for out. Okay. Now you can do this. You can select a very specific frame. Like if you're like really interested in the exact frame that his shoulder leaves, you can just tap the right arrow until it's gone, and then hit O, and that'll change that out point to be on that exact frame. If you're thinking in very precise terms. I think in more of a feeling, like it feels like it ought to be out at about this time instead of being interested in something so specific. But you never know. Those are decisions that you make as an editor. That's part of the art. All right, so now I can click on this and drag this down onto my timeline. Now let's talk about the timeline. We have this divider going right through the middle. Above this is video, okay? So when we start seeing these rectangles down here, we're seeing video above this thicker line. Below is the audio, okay? Now there are key commands. See where my playhead is right here? If we select this, this will drop this clip from this point to this point onto the timeline right here where the playhead is, okay? It'll put it on this track because these two rectangles are blue, okay? So let's do an experiment. Let's click on it. Doink. And that put it down on the timeline, okay? Key command for that is period, okay? Because I just hovered over that and took a look at what the key command is. You can do it visually. snap it to the playhead if you want to, or you can just chuck it over here for safekeeping. You don't know where you want it yet, but you know you're interested in it, then you can just put it over here to have for later.
What's the shortcut for undo?
Command Z. Command Z is undo. So if you mess something up, Command Z is your best friend. Command Z and Command S are your best friends. All right. In fact, I'm going to hit Command S right now just to save my work, just to be safe. All right, so this other one is your insert. And what insert will do is it'll put this clip down on the timeline where my playhead is, but it'll move everything else out of the way and not erase. So the overwrite will erase clips, and then the insert will divide the clips and scoot everything out of the way to make room for it. All right. All right, let's go to the next clip. Clip 19, double click on it. Let's find the part of this we're interested in. So I'm going to hit spacebar. And now watch, as this is playing, I'm going to say I. And then when he jumps, O. Okay, so I didn't even have to stop it to set those in and out points. Okay, so this is a video gamer generation. Like, I can't be bothered to stop this to hit my out. I just want to, bam. And then what's the key command to drop that down on the timeline? Comma or period, right? The two different types of putting them down. So watch, I'm going to hit comma, drops it down there on the timeline. Okay. Now what I have to do is I want these to play back to back, and there's this big gap in between because my playhead was over here. Well, that's easy. I can just click on that second clip, drag it to the left, and because I have snapping on, that'll snap those two together. Okay. Now, if you start editing along and you got all these clips down on the timeline, and they're just getting too scrunched together, I want to be able to get a closer view of them. On your keyboard, plus and minus next to your delete key, it's dangerous, but next to your delete key, if you hit the plus, which is also your equals key, and then minus, that'll zoom in and zoom out. Okay. So even though there's I think there's a zoom tool. I don't see it there. Zoom in and out is plus and minus on your keyboard. The home key with your with any of your your source program or your timeline panels activated, your home key will put that at the beginning of your timeline or the beginning of the clip. Okay, so if I say go back to the beginning, you don't have to with your mouse click on this and drag it back. Besides, you can just click on this anywhere. You don't have to drag it. But the home key will put it back to the beginning. So let's watch these two clips back to back and see how they feel. Walking downstairs, cut downstairs. All right, how did that feel in your mind to watch those two clips next to each other?
Maybe it's just because it's me, but I know that there's no way I came down that and turned around that fast.
Okay, good comment. There's no way he came down the stairs, turned that circle, and started coming down that side in a 1 frame time span. But did anybody else care?
No.
Why?
Because we can imagine that.
Okay, you can put it together. You get where he is. You know where he just was. You know where he is now. You don't have to wait for him to turn the corner.
Also, we're used to seeing time lapses in movies.
Yep.
If the time is sped up, it's not real time.
Yeah, it's like you got a couple of guys talking to each other in a scene and they say, hey, let's go over to Johnny's apartment. You don't need to see them exit their house, get in the car, drive down the road, get out of the car. If they say, hey, let's go talk to Johnny about it, and you hear a knock, 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 and a door opens and it's Johnny in his apartment, you can, as an audience, you can put together that they had to do X, Y, and Z to get there.
So your
You
mind
know.
will fill in the blanks.
So your mind can fill in certain blanks.
Okay.
Others it can't. So is it incorrect for me to maybe move this over, get a little bit more of this clip? Let's watch this. I'm just going to watch it from right here. Okay. Which is correct?
I thought the first one was better.
Okay, you felt it's a feeling.
It doesn't matter. So he was in the
Exactly. Neither one is incorrect. One of them slows the pace of the story down a little, but that doesn't make it wrong. It could just be a decision you're making. Okay. So long as there isn't some weird thing that happens. For example, our next shot. We need to, let's double click on clip 20. Let's put this together. This shot over on the left was shot around the corner and down the hall from where we are here. This is not actually a stairwell. This is a doorway that he's going to jump out of. But we're going to connect these two shots together as though he did come down these stairs and round this corner. Okay? So let's find the moment that we want for him to come around this corner. Boink. Okay, I'm going to stop right about there. I'm going to hit O. And now I'm going to come back here and find the moment that I feel like the cut should happen. And for me, there's an action that's going to connect these two shots together. Can anybody guess what that action is?
Like the top of the jump.
It's like the apex of the jump or something, right? Like right there. Okay. I already cut this together last time, so I know how it fits already. But if you take a look at this shot, and then we go to where he jumps, he lands right here, which tells you what? See where he is? He's not even outside this wall yet. And yet in this shot, he's landing all the way out here. Okay, so how are we going to cover that up with editing?
Cut him sooner from here so you can't see where he lands.
Okay, so we'll cut him sooner from here. So he's in the air. Maybe he's even just like barely leaving on his jump right there. Let me zoom in on my timeline a little bit because this is trimming. I'm going to take the right side of this clip and just click on it, drag it to my playhead because I've got my playhead on the frame that I want this to end on. Okay, that is a trim. Did everybody do that with me? Okay. It was a trim. So we had this much of the clip going out here,
Okay.
but we want the clip to end here. Okay. So you just grab the right side of it till it turns into that little red handle, grabbing the right side of it, and then just pull it back and it'll snap to your playhead. Okay. So that's friendly. And because our playhead is here, and we have this clip set with an in and out point over here, we can either drag and drop this down in, or we can hit period or comma, and it'll drop it down in there in place. Okay, so let's watch it, see how it fits together. All right, that didn't quite work for me. I think I need a little bit more of this one, but there's a problem here. I can't get more of it because they're already butt up next to each other.
Can you pull it apart and then do it?
Okay, I'm going to pull it apart and then add more. That's one way. Let's see how that looks. Nope, still not good. All right, so the other way to do that, this is kind of getting a little ahead of myself here, but there's an edit called the ripple edit. Okay, right now with my selection tool, if I put my selection tool over here, it's got a red arrow with a bracket facing to the right that says I'm grabbing it like this. Okay, and I can change it that way. If I hold down Command, that will turn into double reds. But if I move it slightly to the side, that turns it into a yellow one. What the yellow one does, let me move over here just a little bit so I can show you. What the yellow one does is it's called a ripple edit. And if I now grab that, pull it to the left, it will expand and push everything that's to the right over to make room for the extra footage that I want to show. And if I'm zoomed in quite a bit, I can be precise with it. So I can hold down Command till move my mouse over here till that's yellow, and move it till, look what's happening. I get a side-by-side view of both clips. That represents the frame at which both of those are going to play against one another. So if his body is in a pretty similar position in both of those frames, that means that our brain might be able to do a better job at connecting those together. Okay, so let's try that. Walking down the stairs, hoop, bunk. Okay, so that worked a little bit better, right? Maybe just to help our brains a little more, I'm gonna get like just a little bit more of this one. Oops, I need to zoom in more. All right, let's try that. Okay, gives them. It's not a perfect cut on the action, but it gives your brain enough time to perceive that there's air time. All right, we're gonna put one more clip down here, maybe actually two more clips, and that'll be the end of your first assignment. What?
How do you zoom out?
Plus and minus up next to your delete key, above your QWERTY keyboard.
You have to be selecting the clip.
You need to have your timeline activated.
You don't have to hold shift down though, you just tap and go.
If you, yeah, if you hold down, if you have a clip selected, Premiere's supposed to zoom in on that selected clip. So, yeah. It doesn't necessarily go in on your, well, it does go in on your playhead. So if you want to zoom in on something, put your playhead over it. All right, next clip is going to be clip number 14. This is the shot where we pan up on him going like this. So I'm interested in this right before he steps in. So I'm going to move my playhead there, hit I, and then before he runs into her, I'm going to hit O there. And now let's just do some experiments with this whole, period and comma thing, because look at where my playhead is. So if I hit period, that just put this clip down over the top and replaced those two. Command Z. If I hit comma, it will actually splice into this clip and move the others out of the way, which is also not what I want to do right now, right? So I can either get my playhead, I can either put my playhead at the end and hit end, and then hit either period or comma, or I could have just drug it down here and put it in place. Okay, so there's two different ways. The next clip I want is going to be, I think, I don't know for certain yet. I think it's maybe this one. Let me look at it here. 14? Yeah. So this is one of those, I just hit period again. This is one of those times where you can say,
where you make the decision as the editor. I want to see this impact from this angle or this angle, because we see it here also, but it's a lot less of a surprise from here. There's no element of surprise to the audience. Like, it's not as awkward. They totally see it coming, and it's from here, this is a really obvious thing. Like, it's like, oh yeah, they totally meant to run into each other. But so we want to make it seem more like it was a genuine bump. So let me just watch these 5 clips, and then we'll be done with the hallway setup assignment, okay? Okay. Okay, so I don't like this cut. I would prefer to have the cut happen here because he's stepping onto his left foot. And I might actually not want to use this shot at all. Just go straight to that shot. But I don't know yet because I haven't explored all those options. For this assignment, you need to get your project set up, you need to get the footage imported, and you need to get 5 clips cut together on your timeline, okay? Which we just did, right? So if you're totally with me right now, all you have to do to submit for this first assignment, which is due Monday, is send me that file, okay? The PRPROJ, Premiere Project. Okay, that's all you got to send me. Now, some other tools you got to think about when you're doing your editing is if you don't always have the luxury of trimming, or you want to make a cut instead, hold down, hit C to activate your blade, and you can make a cut. Then hit V again to select it. Let's say I didn't want to trim this back because I still want to keep this portion of this clip so that I can move it over here. Okay, and you can drag boxes around multiple clips to select them and move them around. Other stuff would include, so C is cut. We did ripple editing, which is not necessarily what we would always do. Holding down Option or Alt will allow you, because if I select any of these clips, I'm grabbing the audio and the video. But let's say I like the audio performance of this clip, and I'm going to maybe go to this wide shot, but I want to keep at least the first interaction from this one. And then if I want to select only the video or only the audio, then I hold down Alt or Option. So if I hold down Option and select that audio, then that'll allow me to keep more of this audio. Okay. So for this bump, let's say we want to get this cut to this bump right here, but we only want to use just a little bit of this video. I can hit I right there for my endpoint, and I'm not going to use the whole scene, so I'm just going to grab a little extra video over here. But if I only want to pull the video down from that clip, this little symbol is drag video only, drag audio only. So if I drag that down over the top, maybe this will look good. I don't know, I'm just trying. I haven't done this already.
Why are you standing right?
Okay, so we might need to adjust it so that he says, why are you standing? And then we can cut to another shot after this one. Or maybe try to find a... Okay, so she says, what's wrong with you? And then he says, why? You could maybe cut this audio, go in. So here's a little thing about editing, dialogue and stuff. the way we shot this is her microphone is coming in the right speaker and his microphone is coming in the left speaker. And so this is her, oh no, wait, switch that. This is him and this is her, okay? So if I want to make sure that we cut this line, what's wrong with you? Right before Y, then we can C, cut that right there, V, delete that, and then maybe get this audio back, but okay, so maybe let's find that. Let's go back here. Let's drag this audio and video down so we can have them both. Okay, so we got a Y there. If we bunt these together, then we've got a little gap here because we're using more of this audio. We need more of that audio. So do you remember what it takes to select only the audio or only the video? Alt or Option. Yep. So I'm going to hold down the Option and just drag that to cover up because I want the cut to happen on this moment. Okay. Okay. So we got a little audio hiccup. Well, why are you standing there? We got to clean that up, but we'll get into more of that sort of cleanup next lesson.
Next time.
Yeah. But for the first assignment, we got to stop there because that's it for the first lecture. Okay. Any questions that you want people watching online to know? All the people who happen across this YouTube. All right. Okay, that was a good length. I try to keep them under an hour, so thanks for joining.